The session today is going to be based from a yoga practice, the sun salutation. So it's based on, or its foundations are in Ashtanga Yoga, Samaskara A and Samaskara B. It's a full body sort of movement pattern and hopefully something that you'll find really nice to go through. I'll be using breaths and I'll be calling out positions as we go. It is a variation, so I hope you enjoy it. All right, so coming to the back of your mat or the space that you're working in, firstly, adopting what we'd like to call a mountain pose. So really drawing those hips forwards, engaging those glutes, driving those hands and those palms towards the front of the room. Lowering those shoulders. Take a nice long inhale. Exhale, allow those shoulders to drop a little bit more. On the next inhale, bring those hands into prayer, taking your gaze up towards the ceiling, reaching nice and tall and almost forming a bit of a pencil here. Lifting up that rib cage for 3, keep breathing for 2, for 1. On your next exhale, so wait until you're there, bend those knees, bring those hands into prayer, hinging from the hips all the way down into a nice forward fold position at Uttanasana B. Tucking the chin into the chest. Maybe playing around with the length here, so either bending those knees nice and generously or trying to straighten them out. Really what we're looking for is a nice long spine, got our chin slightly tucked into our chest, and it doesn't really matter how long these legs are, as long as we've got a nice pull down the back of the legs. Tucking the chin into the chest for 3, for 2, for 1. As you next inhale, placing your hands on your shins, lengthening out the legs. So this time you can push those legs back. If you have hyperextension or hypermobility, just be really wary of pushing them back too far. You want to gain a little bit of strength in a micro bend. Otherwise, if you don't have hypermobility, you can lock out as long as it's comfortable. Taking your gaze down towards the mat. Now squeezing those shoulder blades together, driving those shoulders down towards your hips. So depressing your shoulder blades, so lowering them for 3, keep breathing, for 2, for 1. When we next exhale, we're going to bend those knees again, drop that torso, bring those hands into prayer, and then bending those knees nice and generously again, rolling up vertebrae by vertebrae. Just be really mindful here. If you've been sat down for a long period of time and you've just gone into a variation of an inversion, you might get a light head as you move up. So just take your time, keep breathing, slowly coming up, taking those hands up towards the ceiling. Nice and strong position here. Dropping those hands down into mountain pose. Good. So drawing those shoulders back. We're going to do that again, but we're going to add a bit on. So as we inhale, taking those hands up towards the ceiling, reaching nice and tall, hands either side of the ears. As we exhale, we're going to hinge from the hips, bending those knees, driving all the way forwards into a nice forward fold position, allowing our torso to relax over our legs here. Grabbing hold of your shins, your ankles, your feet, the mat, doesn't matter. For 3, for 2, for 1. As you next inhale, placing the hands on your shins or on the mat, lengthening out those legs where possible, where comfortable, keeping that head nice in line with the spine here, trying to flatten the back. So it might mean instead of being really rounded here, you try and squeeze those shoulder blades together and really drive that chest through. For 3, for 2, for 1. As you next exhale, bend those knees, walk those hands forwards, coming into a nice strong plank position. If you need to, just pop down onto your knees here. For 3, for 2, putting away from the mat, for 1. Dropping onto the knees nice and slowly with control. Untucking those toes and allow your torso to come onto the mat also, but keeping those elbows nice and close. You might feel that this is really hard. Just work with it and just go with as much as you can. Taking those hands out in front of you into a Sphinx position. Palms on the mat. Bring those elbows nice and close, shoulder width apart. Bring those feet together, lifting up your chest, taking your gaze forwards. For 3, for 2, for 1. As you next exhale, dropping that chest towards the mat. Plant your hands either side of your chest. Tucking those toes, pushing back into child's pose. When you next inhale, we're going to come into down dog, and there are lots of variations for this. If you are feeling pretty tight, you can just go and find yourself a wall and do an L shape from the wall. I'll show you in a second. But otherwise, we're going to move our hands to shoulder width apart, keep our fingers nicely splayed, play around with this position. It is quite hard to get into if you're not used to it, so don't be disappointed if it feels really challenging. It is a challenging position. So keeping those feet shoulder width apart, driving your chest and your torso through, so trying to create a nice long line between your hips, your armpits, and your hands and your wrists. You will find that if you're quite tight on the thoracic area of the spine, so the top of the spine, your shoulders, your pecs, you might be a little bit rounded here, and it might be really hard to get that head through. Don't worry, just bend those knees nice and aggressively. Maybe bring your tummy towards your thighs, and just work on that shoulder area mobility. So for those of you who are really struggling, you're going to have your hands on the wall like so, dropping that chest through. You're doing the same, you're just taking out a little bit of the pressure on the lower part of the body, working on that shoulder mobility. 3, for 2, for 1. Taking your gaze towards the front of the mat, slowly walking your feet up to where your hands are, planting your heels with every step if you can, bending those knees. When you're at the top of the mat, taking a nice inhale and coming into your nice upright position or your forward-looking position, Uttanasana B. Take an inhale here and just adjust that spinal position. So maybe lengthen out the legs if it's comfortable. Squeeze those shoulder blades together and depress them. Keep your gaze into the mat for 3, for 2, for 1. When you next exhale, bend those knees, forward fold, all the way, keeping that chin tucked into the chest. Either allowing your hands to go down to the mat, and if you can get your hands onto the mat, maybe going on the opposite side of your wrist, so on the tops of your hands onto the floor, lengthening out those legs if you can, but otherwise you might be here and that might be working for you. So just give yourself a little bit of a break if you're finding this hard. For 3, for 2, for 1, bring your hands into prayer, rolling up vertebrae by vertebrae all the way to a nice standing position. Taking those hands up towards the ceiling, reaching nice and tall, and then taking them back down into mountain pose. Excuse the lights. Coming into that again, we're going to do the full variation. So we're taking our hands up towards the ceiling on the inhale, reaching nice and tall, keeping that rib cage tucked in. As we exhale, we're going to hinge forward from the waist, bending those knees all the way down, forward fold, Uttanasana. When we next inhale, we're coming into halfway look, Uttanasana B. If you need those hands on the shins, the main thing is it's nice on the spine, alignment in the spine. As we next exhale, planting the hands, taking your left foot back, adopting a nice position. I like to do a bit of a dip here to get a bit of hip mobility, and then taking your right foot back in nice strong plank position. You can see my bottom is almost in line with my shoulders, so I haven't got it too tall, but I'm not sinking down and crushing my lower spine, my lumbar area. Coming down onto your knees to lower your torso towards the mat, like so. And then coming into baby cobra. So keeping your rib cage, your lower rib cage on the floor, lifting your chest up. Or if you're in a nice full position, lower yourself into what I call half plank, elbows nice and close. When you next inhale, maneuver your way into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, up dog. So you can see here my thighs are off the floor, my tops of my feet are pressing into the floor, and I'm taking my gaze out in front of me for 2, for 1. Untucking those toes, whichever variation you're in, find yourself back in down dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. From here, just moving around, getting a little bit of mobility here for 3, for 2, for 1. Planting your left foot in the centre of the mat here, lifting that right foot nice and tall, taking a nice big lunge forwards. If you only get your foot to halfway up the mat, just grab it, take it forwards, bring your left foot to meet your right, straight into your halfway look, Uttanasana B. So remembering that nice long back, lengthening out those legs. Take a breath here. On your next exhale, fold forwards. You might need to bend those knees, Uttanasana. And as you inhale, hinging from the hips this time, hands into prayer, reaching up into a nice standing salute position, arms either side of the ears, taking those hands down into mountain pose, lowering those shoulders. Take a nice breath. We're going to do one more variation. We're going to include a couple of lunges in there and what we call Uttanasana chair position. So as you inhale, take your hands up towards the ceiling, reaching nice and tall. As you exhale, I'm going to bend those knees. Imagine I'm sitting back on a mat. My feet are hip width apart here. They can be together if that's more comfortable. Taking your hands back and then lifting them back up, remaining trying to sit down a little bit further. Key things to watch here, overextension in the lower spine. So really tuck that out, tilt that tailbone under. And if you can, take your gaze down towards your toes. Can you see your toes? And really we want to be able to see our toes here. If it's too much on the shoulders, bring your hands down into prayer for 3, for 2, for 1. If you're in prayer, take those hands up as tall as you can. And when you next exhale, hinge forwards from the hips, diving all the way into your nice forward fold position. As you next inhale, coming into your halfway look, whatever variation you're going for 3, for 2, for 1. Take a nice long inhale here. And as you exhale, plant those hands either side of the feet. Take a nice big step back with your left or right foot, or you can try bunny hopping back into a nice plank position. Remember, in this plank position, we're not allowing our core to break. So we're nice and strong, pushing through the mat with our hands, really engaging our core, our glutes, our thighs, through our toes. For 3, for 2, for 1. Either coming down onto your knees and slowly lowering yourself onto the mat, or coming into your half plank. As you inhale, coming into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, up dog or your variation, just watch that lower back. Exhale into Adho Mukha Svanasana. Just adjust your feet, that's down dog. So play around with this position for 3, for 2, for 1. Take your gaze towards the front of the mat. Putting your left foot at the back of the mat center, lifting that right foot up, lunging all the way to in between your hands. Or if you get here, just move that foot forwards. Slowly, with control, standing up into a lunge position. You might find that your feet are too narrow. Just take that left foot out if you need to for a bit of balance. And if you can, take those hands up towards the ceiling, do so. Otherwise, again, if your shoulders are sore or you're finding this pretty tough, bring your hands into prayer. Again, just watching that lower back. It's okay to have some extension there. However, we don't want to be putting undue pressure there. So if you're finding it quite hard, just bring that back knee in. Sit a little bit more upright. Throw that pelvis forwards. For 3, for 2, for 1. Taking your gaze up towards the ceiling. Inhaling, lengthening. Exhaling, keeping that length in that spine. Framing that front foot. Take that front foot back up towards the ceiling and then dropping it down onto the back of the mat. On the next one, we might do a vinyasa there, but for today, we're not going to do that. So coming into that nice Adho Mukha Svanasana, down dog position. This time we're going to take our right foot in the centre of the mat, lift that left foot up, lunging all the way forwards again. Just find your way up to this position. Don't start to stand up until you've found some balance here. And again, you might just need to play around with your footing. So you might want to drop your back heel and turn your back foot out, or you might just want to stay on your toes on the back foot into a more of a runner's lunge variation, taking those hands up towards the ceiling. Again, just noticing how this feels on the body. A nice pull is all it should be. Nothing too drastic, nothing too painful. Taking the hands down to prayer if you'd like to, otherwise keeping them up towards the ceiling. For 3, for 2, for 1. If they're in prayer, lengthen them out. Inhale, reach, get some length in the spine. And as you exhale, keep that length in the spine. Fold forwards, frame that front foot, take that front foot back, and then coming into down dog position. Last vinyasa. So from here, you can either make your way slowly to the top of the mat, or you can finish with me in this last sequence. As you inhale, coming into your plank position. Again, stay nice and strong. For 3, for 2, For 1, as you exhale, either going all the way to mat onto your knees for your variation or half plank. Inhale, up dog or your variation, thighs off the ground. Exhale, down dog. Good. Just finding a position here, just briefly. Again, moving around. Moving around helps us with our range of motion, really helps with sort of keeping us mobilized in the hip area, the shoulder area, working our thoracic area as well of our spine. For 3, 2, 1. Either stepping, walking, or hopping to where your hands are. So if you're hopping, just nice and controlled. Try and land as softly as you can and coming straight into your halfway look. Uttanasana B. So your variation is hands on the shins, if that's nicer for you. Squeezing those shoulder blades together, keeping that gaze onto the mat. 2, for 1. When you next exhale, maybe bending the knees or just folding forwards. Maybe bringing the palms or the top of the palms of your hands down towards the mat. Tucking that chin in for 2, for 1. And when you next inhale, maneuvering back into chair pose with your feet together, maybe heel toe them out so the shoulder sort of hip width apart. Using your hands, hinge from the hips, bend those knees, coming into your Uttanasana chair position. Again, just remember those cues. So really pushing out the lower back so it's in a nice natural curve instead of super extended at the bottom. Making sure you can see your toes here, taking those arms up. Keep yourself breathing. Tuck the ribcage in for 3, for 2, for 1. Standing up nice and tall, coming into a nice mountain position. And then finishing up there. So shaking out those legs, rolling those shoulders. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that variation of sun salutations, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session.